All right, good evening, everyone. This is Monday night. This is the official start. If those of you who watched our very first show, we had Arnoldo and I talking a little bit of NAMM, ranting about some of the things we saw, but now we're ready to talk about all the important things in the world. And for that, I brought in my friend Joe Martin. Good evening, Joe.
Hello, John, and welcome to Texas. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well, doing well. Very good to have you on tonight. I'm excited. We've talked over the years, and we've known each other for a long, long time in this industry, but this, as you were saying, it's your first time to actually sit down and do a show together.
It is. We just figured out how to do this. Got a camera 2 weeks ago. I'm still stuck in the 90s, man.
Yeah, but that's okay. You know, when the fax machine and pager go off, we'll know what's.
Hey, look back here. We still got the landline.
I think mine's on the other side. Yeah, in the office I have one because of setting all the messages back. So tonight, gang, we're going to be talking. We've got 4 shows going on this evening. We're going to be talking about talking to some of the speakers who are at Mobile Beat Las Vegas 2017. If you want to check out the full schedule, down in the chat below on Facebook, on YouTube, whichever one, in the description actually is the link for the full schedule. Go check that out. If you have any questions, we're going to be doing the chat room in YouTube. So go to show 2 tonight, which is Joe Martin. Click on that. That'll bring you out here to the YouTube, and that's where we're going to be fielding questions, having our chats, discussing things. Yeah, like we just finished talking about DJ Expo. Yeah, we're all over the board here tonight already.
You got it in.
Yeah, everything's going. So, Joe, let's start off talking a little bit. Now, you're going to be presenting at Mobile Beat and such, so let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be talking about.
Well, indeed, we are going to be presenting out at Mobile Beat the first time that we presented nationwide in probably 8 or 9 years. Got a hold of Ryan and the guys, and it's going to be great to get back up on the big stage in the big room and talk to people about that dirty 4-letter word, SAVE, S-A-V-E. And that's what we're going to talk about. Actually, we're going to talk about the long and winding road of life. You know, a lot of people will be attending the convention to pick up the performance tips, to pick up the tips on how they can increase sales, how they can have a better performance, more closings and everything like that. In essence, make more money. Well, what I'm going to talk about to everyone is what to do with that more money, especially if you have not started a retirement plan. If you have not planned for your future yet, and you could be 20, 30, 40, 50, or even in your 60s. Many people have. About 1/3 of Americans do have a retirement account started. That leaves about 30% that does not, and about another 40% that are underfunded in their accounts. So a lot of people, in my years of going to conventions, my golly, we went to the first DJ convention, that show up in the Northeast in New Jersey back in 1994, and that's where I met a lot of guys. I presented that very first year that I was up there, and that opened up the door for me to meet disc jockeys from all over the world. And I've had the opportunity to talk to many, and unfortunately, I hate to say, many of them are not where they need to be on their financial futures. I have helped some offline, talking to in person and on the phone, and at last year's convention would sit out in the hallway and discuss with them what they might want to do with the extra money they have and how they can get started. But I'm going to tell you one of the biggest reasons that most people fail when it comes to starting a retirement plan. They don't look at the little picture. They look at the end result over the next 30 or 40 years. Whereas if you bite off the tiny piece and take each step one at a time, one day leads into a week leads into a month leads into a year, and a year leads into a decade. So if you take these little bites, you can get to your goal. Whereas don't look 40 years down the line. You know, the hardest dollar to save, John, is the very first one.
Yeah,
that's the hardest dollar to save. And a lot of people accuse me of being frugal over the years.
Oh, yeah.
I like to think that maybe I was cost conscious. I also am a firm believer that by cutting expenses, you can indeed give yourself a pay raise. Just last month, I was able to save $13 a month on my cable bill, which in essence gives me about another $150 a year raise. Well, that $150 put with another $150 with another one gives me some money that could be saved if I wanted to. So we will be talking that first day. My goal is to try to get through to a few people, preferably in their 20s or their 30s or even 40s. When you're in your 50s, you may have waited a little too long, but I'll still try to give you a pat on the back and give you some advice. Let me tell you one thing that I'm not, John. I'm not a financial planner, and I am not a stockbroker. What I am is a fellow, just like all of the viewers, that has been a mobile DJ, club DJ, and I've done it for darn near 50 years. I grew up in a home where my father was a banker. And luckily, my father taught me many things that have gone with me through life to help me save money and help me know how to get the best deals on money when I was borrowing money. Taught me how to get the cheapest loans, the easiest way to get loans. I'm happy to say, though, that I have not had any loan. I have been debt-free since 1989.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 38 years old. You know, one of my first goals in life, John, was to have a paid-for house by age 40. That's a pretty big goal.
That is.
I had it paid for at age 38.
Wow.
Then, after that, I never had to borrow another penny. I started borrowing money from myself. I became my own banker and my own finance man, and actually even paid myself back interest. So I do know a little bit about it. I don't want people to say, you know, this old Joe Martin's a guy that is a Dave Ramsey wannabe. Dave is a great guy. Dave puts out a great message. Susie Orman had a great message, and she was on television up until about 2 years ago. But I would like to point out that I had my first house paid for 3 years before Dave ever went on radio, and 3 years before Dave ever wrote his first book. I got my first stock when Dave Ramsey was 8 years old. So one of my biggest regrets, and I think you were going to ask me that, but one of my biggest regrets now is having worked in radio for as many decades as I did, is that I did not take my money message to the radio back in the 70s and 80s, long before Dave Ramsey. Dave is a very wealthy man. Most people would consider me and look at me as possibly being somewhat comfortable. But no doubt, I think most would say Dave is a very wealthy man. But how my message differs is the fact that I have been a mobile DJ and a club DJ and a radio DJ for almost 50 years. Mm-hmm. And I've walked in the shoes, and I know what it's like to go out and perform at a wedding. I know what it's like to feel like on Monday after you're beat up carrying gear on Friday and Saturday nights. But I also had the energy to go down to the bank on Monday morning to cash that check and put 15% in a savings account.
Yeah, for sure. You got a lot of areas I want to go here. Let's start. You mentioned this about living kind of a frugal lifestyle and such. You know, people are that's the first thing you're going to do is you mentioned 15%. Well, you're putting all the money away, and you probably basically didn't do a lot to enjoy yourself. For people who are going to come out with that concept, and basically, you know, did you buy any toys? You basically just lived looking at the dollars and cents all the time.
You know, I did live a modest life. I will be honest with you. And to the viewers, let's be honest, put it out here on the table. I do live in Texas. The real estate here in Texas is a whole lot cheaper than in the Northeast and on the West Coast. So that was advantageous to me, the locale where I lived, in achieving my financial goals. Had I lived on the West Coast where houses cost 4 times the amount as here, I would have had to charge more money out there. But I was fortunate enough here in North Texas to buy a nice house, get it paid for. In fact, that first house was paid for in, I believe, 5 years. And it was a 15-year loan, so I paid it off real fast. I hate debt. Mm-hmm. I hate owing anybody money. I don't owe anybody money. And it's a wonderful feeling. It's such a feeling at night when you go to bed thinking, I don't owe a soul a penny.
It is so odd in our society of fast and easy credit to have that.
Well, it is. And for any of our viewers that have not been taught the lesson, please, please, please do not go to payday loan companies or title loan companies, folks. Let me give you a tip. This old Joe Martin giving you a tip. Take your flat screen 75-inch TV down to the pawn shop and pawn it, because the interest is about 1/3 of what a payday loan place would be. Now, that's still not where I would go to get money, but if you feel destined and determined to come up with some extra cash, go down to the pawn shop instead of a payday loan place.
So you mentioned you've been in the DJ business for about 50 years now, but you during that time you were not only just doing the mobile thing, but you were also a radio, because when you and I first met, you were very active in the radio scene.
Absolutely, and in fact, for many, many years, I didn't even take a paycheck in radio. I was taking an advertising trade out so I could advertise my business, and that got me a lot more mileage than the $5, $6, $7, $8 an hour that they were paying back in those days. So I went 17 years without a paycheck in radio, and it was a good deal for me. But in 1975, I went to part-time status in radio for the most part, because I had determined at that point I could make a lot more money being a club DJ or doing a mobile DJ job. And my first club job came in 1973 for the wonderful sum of $3 per hour. And then, but wait, the following year, 1974, my first mobile job was a high school job, a 3-hour gig, and it paid me $12 an hour. So I came away with $36 that night on my very first high school job.
And was that included you providing gear and such for that?
Well, get this, the best deal going. This probably was the best gig I ever had in life, was because the radio station had the free gear, and I went into the promo closet and pulled out copies of every record I needed to play that night. So the only money and expense involved was the gas to get me to the gig, which in those days, gasoline, was about 60 cents a gallon.
Yeah, I was going to say it was.
So it was a wonderful gig.
How times have changed.
Oh, indeed. They have changed. Back when I got into radio, there were no magazines, there were no associations, there were no conventions, there was no internet, there were no record pools. We had to make a lot of our equipment. I am old school all the way. We made lighting out of coffee cans.
Oh, yeah.
and television antenna trussing and things of that nature. And then, of course, in the mid-'70s and on, the DJ companies started coming about. But back in those days, in 1974, there was a company making mixers, but you had to buy the separate preamp, and I can't remember the brand name, but in 1974, a DJ mixer or club mixer would have been right at $1,000, and that was a whole lot of money back in those days, especially when you're only pulling down $36 a gig.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's for sure. That's something people were like, oh, the old gear is so crappy. Well, at the time, there wasn't enough money to justify these companies getting into creating it.
When there weren't any DJ companies out there, what did guys do? They started using band amplifiers. They were using band speakers. PV was real big at the time. One of my first rigs was a 6-speaker Cerwin-Vega rig. And each one of those Cerwin-Vega cabinets was 75 pounds apiece. We carried out 4 of those and 2 of the B36 bass cabinets, which I still have today and still use, and they're 40 years old.
Oh, goodness gracious. Wow.
I'm waiting to get my money's worth out of them.
I still have a couple more gigs out of them I can get. Oh, funny. So, Joe, let's kind of talk about before we went on there, we were talking as you kind of progressed, and you had mentioned, you started talking about basically one of the best moves you made as a business. Now, this isn't so much as an after the fact, but it was a move that you made at that point in time that really helped your business profitability. So let's talk about that.
Absolutely. In fact, we had been in business 30 years, and back in the 70s, I actually was a multi-op guy. I had 2 guys working with me. I never said for me. They worked with me, and we would go out and do, one guy might be up close to Oklahoma City, one out by Amarillo, and here I was in Wichita Falls or down towards Dallas and Fort Worth. And that went on for a while. Then I went back to solo, and then got me a 17-year contract at Shepherd Air Force Base here in Wichita Falls, and they paid good money. That government contract money is sweet money. It was regular money, and those checks were always coming. They were on time. We never had a problem, and I stayed there 17 years. So in 93, I lost that 17-year contract that had been in the Airmen's and NCO and Officers Club, and I was a little, I'll be honest with you, I was a little down. 17 years, the party was over, as Willie Nelson said. But I decided to take one last gamble and give it a go, and I said, I'm going to get into karaoke. We jumped into karaoke in 94, and it had to be the smartest business move I ever made at that time, because I then brought on, as things grew very quickly, and we're talking growing month after month after month, it was just doubling and tripling. Wow. Brought in 5 guys. We were working many, many nights every week, and this was, in fact, there was a month back then that I actually worked 29 nights out of 30. And that was having guys work for me. So it was really a big thing. Karaoke ran, and I ran with karaoke up until 1 year ago this month. And I have gotten actively slowing down. I'm not afraid to say that I'm now 66. I turned 65 a year ago, and I hit that Social Security button. And it's something that I have worked for. I was able to put money back, and as a supplement to the Social Security money, I've got that investment money that I put 40 years into, and so that helps me get by. And I am still working. My goal this year is to work one night a month for a total of 12 for the year. It may not come down that way. It may be 2 or 3 in 1 month and then have a 3-month vacation.
Right.
But I'm working now. One of the sad things in any job that anybody does in life is that they have to work and they don't want to work, or they don't enjoy their work. Yeah. Now, work as long as you want to, but try to enjoy it. Don't go out here and do jobs. And I'm sure you did at some point, and everyone watching tonight probably in the early days or at some point maybe still has to go out and do a job they don't want to do just to pay the bills. And I took those kind of jobs that I didn't really necessarily want, but you had to take them to make ends meet. I'm at that point now that I can do exactly what I want, and what I want to do now is nothing but nostalgia events centering around class reunions, car shows, corporate events that have a nostalgia theme, or any 40-year-olds that want to go back and have a 70s disco party. I'm the guy to do that. And that's what I'm trying to do now. And I'm having a heck of a time doing it.
Sure.
I kind of skipped over karaoke. We did a lot of things, a lot of years. And that karaoke for me, I ran 22, 23 years. And as I say, it was the best thing that I ever did in the entertainment business.
Because I think for quite a period of time, that was the main focus, and you were doing almost weddings on the side during a period.
Absolutely. Yeah, the karaoke accounted for 75% of my business income. So now we had to work a lot of nights to do it, but I'll be honest with you, we were actually making some good money. The last gig that I just did was very, very good money, and that gig lasted for 8.5 years.
Wow.
And it was nice money, sweet money.
It's just astounding. 29 shows in 30 days. 29 nights.
Well, and I was a lot younger then. That would have been when I was 44 when I got into karaoke. But what almost killed me was I was still doing some radio at that time. And when I jumped into karaoke, I actually had agreed to fill in at the radio station for 3 months until they got another guy to come in. So I was doing the radio gig, going out and working all night long, getting home 2 a.m, getting to bed, sleeping a few hours, and getting up and going on the radio. And it was not a good schedule. In fact, the doctor told me at age 45, he said, "Joe, do you have to work this hard?" And I said, "No." And so I left radio shortly after that. But I have actually retired 5 times from radio here in Wichita Falls. They seem to call and convince me to come back in. But I think we are officially through with radio in the Lone Star State.
That's what you say today until the next call comes in. And Come on.
Well, we left in '08, and I guess that's 9 years now. And in fact, I was out in Vegas when I went back to work on the radio. I was out in Vegas at the Mobile Beat show back in '06, and I got a phone call, said, "Hey, Joe, we want you to come back to the radio." And I returned the call from Vegas and said, "Okay, I'll be there next Monday." And so went back on the air again. But it was kind of weird how that worked out.
Joe, we got a question from the chat room. They were wondering where the Mad moniker came up in your...
Great question. When I came to Wichita Falls, and I had used a few radio names over the years, in case you didn't know, many radio DJs use their made-up names for a DJ persona. But when I got to town, I was told immediately that you were replacing the DJ that quit last week, and his name was Weird Martin. So we are christening you Mad Martin. Go on the air, and we don't want anyone to know that there's been any change. Don't say that you're new. Just go on there and pretend like you're the old guy, but with the name Mad Joe Martin. So, it hung for 45 years. I wasn't real happy about it, but I made the most of it, and I ran with it.
That's interesting. So,
and we were actually in the ratings at the time, and that's the reason they did that, because you don't want any changes in personnel when you're in the middle of a ratings period. So this guy left them high and dry, and they brought me in and threw me on the air and said, "You are now Mad Martin." I said, "Okay."
Just checking the chat board here a little bit more. Okay, so they're just chatting about. They're talking about different types of events, but they're discussing. So Joe, as you've gone over the years and such, you've talked about investing for 40 some years in that.
Yes.
At Mobile Beat, are you going to be talking, giving some suggestions to the 20-year-olds of spots they could invest or techniques for that, or I guess
I'm going to tell
what kind of tools can they expect from the presentation?
I'm going to try to help them overcome their fears if they have not started. If they have, great. I'm going to pat them on the back. But if you have not started your retirement planning, I'm going to show you the easy ways to do it. Nice. I'm going to tell you the reason why most people do not do it and the why. And then I'm going to show you how you can correct that problem and make it easy. One of the worst things, and I know we're running out of time, John. I think we could talk all night, but one of the worst things I have found out that about 60%, 70% of mobile DJs out there also have day jobs. They work for the man. They do a Monday through Friday, and that's wonderful. And many of those companies that they work for offer 401k plans with matching funding.
Yep.
I'm aware of people that work for corporations that have the opportunity to get this free money with 401k matching, but yet these folks have not started their retirement fund. This is turning away free money that is wanting to be put in your pocket. If you are one of those people that is doing that, stop it. Go down to Human Resources tomorrow. Tell them Joe Martin sent me down here and I want to sign up and start participating in this 401k. And now my biggest tip, ask your HR department if the company offers a Roth 401k. Some do, many don't, but some are switching over. If you have the option of a traditional or a Roth 401k, believe me, go for that Roth. Come out to Vegas. We'll talk some more about it. I got to give a quick shout out. Mike Walter, check back up there. We've got Purple Rain hanging on the wall. That is just for you, buddy. I want to give a shout out to the old DJs across the United States. I am, along with Robert Lindquist, one of the moderators of the senior Facebook DJ page. Some of those guys are watching. And Brian Foley, who is also speaking out at Mobile Beat on Thursday. He is speaking about passion, being passionate about your subject, being passionate about being a mobile DJ. John, would you say I'm passionate?
You have been. You've always been a passionate man as long as I've known. Joe, if people want to get in contact with you and touch base and ask some questions and such, what's a good way to do that?
Well, here, this is the easy way to do it. Can
there we go. Yes, we can.
Okay, we got 940-322-1414. You can call me at any time or go to joemartinproductions.com and you can contact me through that website. Again, 940-322-1414. Real quick tip in closing. If you are a parent of a teenager, buy this book, Motley Fool Investment Guides for Teens. Get your teens reading this book. Let them have more money than you'll ever make. This is for your kids, and you read it before, and I guarantee you, you will find this very beneficial. Money Magazine, I've been reading it for 40 years. You can go online, probably get it free. So those are my tips tonight. We're going to have a whole bunch of ideas out in Vegas, and I want to talk to everyone that is interested in this. And quickly, John, I am not selling anything. Not selling anything. So folks, call me if you want to discuss your plans. Call me or email me if you want to just chat, and I'll give you some advice. No charge.
Good stuff, Joe. I appreciate your time tonight, gang. We'll try to get some of those links and such for that. I'm going to see if Joe can email over that book title for us, and we'll put that into the description so we can make sure we have that. Joe, we got to wrap up. Thank you much for being on, and we'll see you at Mobile Beat.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure, and I hope we can do it again soon.
That sounds great. We'll be back here in about 5 minutes with our next show, gang. It's show number probably 3 in the description below. We'll catch you in a few.